Hi, welcome to Outwork With, where I sit down with industry leaders to get real about their career journeys. No rehearsed answers, no corporate fluff, just honest conversations about the wins, the fails, and all the messy bits in between. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Mimi Swain, the Chief Commercial Officer at Ring and Blink, two of the most recognized names in the smart home technology space. Mimi's leadership isn't just about driving results. Her vision is shaped as much by the boardroom experience as it is by the values that she grew up with in Kansas. Things like hard work, humility, and showing up for people. She's the kind of leader who's not afraid to admit she doesn't have all the answers, and in doing so, she creates a culture where curiosity, trust, and real collaboration can thrive. In our conversation, we explore the pivotal moments that defined her path, from navigating the fast-paced world of tech to confronting something many of us quietly wrestle with: imposter syndrome. We talk about what success really means, how she leads through change, and the personal mindset shifts that have shaped her along the way. Whether you're an aspiring leader or simply someone drawn to the real human stories behind transformative brands, this episode is packed with insight, reflection, and inspiration. So please join me in welcoming Mimi Swain. Hi, Mimi.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm so happy to see you in person. I know we were talking about this before, and how crazy, right? I reached out to you, and you happened to be in London when we wanted to do the record.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's just such great timing, and I think when it works out, it's
yeah,
always, like,
yeah.
good to sort
It
of
was such
capitalize
a
on those
crazy
opportunities.
coincidence as well. I was like, oh, and then, Diana was kind enough to be like, she's in person if you want to do it. I was like, hell yes. I would love to see her in person.
Yeah, I'm a bit all over, so it's always good when things align. No, I'm
Yeah.
happy to be here with you,
Oh,
and to chat
amazing.
today.
How are you finding London so far? I know it's
I'm
supposed to be a
lucky,
great
it's
one.
really sunny,
Yeah,
the last couple days, so I
yeah.
feel
This is
lucky.
like warm for us.
I was checking, packing, living in Southern California, you don't really have to think about the weather
Yeah.
and really being prepared. And I was checking the weather app and realized no chance of rain, so
Yeah.
I could just leave my rain boots and things at home, so it made it a bit easier. But no, I'm
Yeah.
so happy to be here.
Oh, amazing. Right. As we were talking about before, Mimi, I'd love to start right at the beginning. So I'd love to start from, just tell us a bit about yourself. Where you're from. So
Yeah.
I'd love to start from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share that. I always love telling folks that I'm from, the Midwest. So I grew up in America and I grew up in Kansas, which is right in the middle.
I thought I saw a twinge of the accent, and I was like, no, she's from California.
It's very subtle. I think in certain words
I
it
had a
comes
tiny
out.
bit, yeah.
Otherwise, it's generally pretty neutral. But
Yeah.
I grew up in Kansas, and so that's in the Midwest, and so I think that's a big part of what shaped my values in terms of just I think being from there. I think it helps with my relatability, and I think it just
Yeah.
helps me really to sort of better understand different perspectives. It's really been helpful for my work. I'm a second generation Vietnamese American. My parents came from Vietnam in the early 80s, and I was really fortunate to be born in the US, which I think has been really incredible for just the opportunities.
Mhm.
I talk a bit about this idea of almost having this cosmic balance sheet that, like, I feel so fortunate for, the opportunities I've had to be born to the parents that I was born to and to grow up in the US and for the opportunities that's really afforded
Mhm.
me. And so I think part of that is then I'm always focused on bringing others up with me on this journey, which has been really, really wild.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're talking about. I think you've seen both sides of the coin, right? You've seen like that kind of immigrant mentality where you come and you work really hard and you kind of give your everything, right? I mean, I saw that with my parents as well, right? They work so hard that you almost feel like I have to do something with my life. Like I have to do
Oh yeah,
something
like that was sort
to
of
make their sacrifices
that
worth
was
it.
the undercurrent of sort of every decision, whether I wanted to do a sleepover or, some type of
Yeah.
camp, that it always came up in conversation with my parents of all the things that they did to sacrifice,
Yeah.
that they left their family, to come to the US, and that was a harrowing journey for
Yeah.
them, to come over, and that they've sacrificed all these things, and sort of I owed it to them,
Yeah.
um, to actually do something with my life. My
Yeah.
parents were really big on prioritizing education
Yeah.
and really and really truly believing in that American dream of just like if you
Yeah.
work hard and you go to school and you stay curious about things, and they instilled an incredible amount of grit in me. And so it was not a choice,
Yeah.
actually, like that.
I feel like we've all had that experience, right? Somewhere or the other. It doesn't matter where in the world you're from. You always get that experience.
It's that shared context I think you have
Yeah.
as being a child of immigrant parents of just like, you're not wasting these things and you're
Yep.
gonna maximize every opportunity, and
Yeah.
we didn't sort of give up all these things for you to just be
Yeah.
a bum. And so I find it incredibly relatable when I can talk to others who've
Yeah.
been through that experience. It's like, wow, we all like our parents all had the same playbook.
Yeah. How did so what I'm always fascinated to ask, is how did that shape your, like, education choices and then eventually your career choices? Because, I mean, I know you alluded to before about journalism when we were speaking before. So how did
Uh,
you, like, navigate into that education sphere?
yeah, I think I think for many parents, I think my parents would have loved for me to have been a lawyer or a pharmacist or
Or
a
a
doctor.
doctor or an engineer?
Or an engineer, and my dad's an engineer, and so it was a big
Of
part of
course.
just like, why don't you wanna be an engineer like your dad? And because I grew up in Kansas, he was, an engineer for all there's a lot of aviation based there, so
Mhm.
he worked for
Yeah.
Learjet and all the
Yeah.
other, sort of big sort of brands there, and Boeing was there,
Yeah.
and, um, you know, I think there's just so much pressure that are put on kids, to,
Yeah.
like, pick a path and decide it really early on, and I didn't feel a calling to those things. Like I didn't feel the need to be or this passion or drive to be like a doctor or
Mhm.
pharmacist. And so I always joked with my parents that I'll just get an office job and I'll figure it out. And
You literally I can
I
see from your career, you've literally figured it out.
I figured it out, but I think I was always really naturally curious about things and really had, and I've been lucky just across my career to just work for some incredible brands, and I loved, retail, and I loved consumer behavior and sort of use this as this platform for my career, but really early on I wanted to be a journalist. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to be like Barbara Walters, I
Yeah.
wanted to be like Connie Chung. And so I went to J school, and
Yeah.
then of course my parents are like, what are you what where is this going?
Yeah. God. So you started off in journalism, and I know obviously pre-Ring you've had a background in Dyson and Sonos. So how do we go from kind of those consumer brands to then coming into Ring? Ideally, like I think what I'd love to understand is was there a defining moment for you post the journalism, where you were like, I really want a seat at the table and I want to really do something big and go big, right? Because now you're CEO of Ring. So how like what was that trajectory almost?
It wasn't planned at all. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't have told you, even 10 years ago, this is where
Yeah.
I would have, ended up, and I think I've been really focused. I think early in my career, I was really focused on this idea of linear growth, that if I did
Yeah.
this track, then I would be,
Yeah.
especially working somewhere like at Dyson, which was an
Yeah.
incredible experience. It's very linear in your growth, and so it's
Yeah.
very much like a consumer goods business where
Yeah.
you're an associate, and
Yeah.
then you're a manager, and then a senior manager, and so I got kind of stuck in this idea of like, okay, this is the predefined track that I'm on. And I had a realization, I think, early on there that if I just said yes and opened myself up to different opportunities to learn as much as I could, that could just help shape this, toolbox of experiences. At the time, it was just like, I just need to learn all these things because
Yeah.
I felt like I knew nothing about marketing and I knew nothing about consumers, but had a lot of strong instincts.
Yeah.
And so I felt that it was important for me to try all these things and learn, and always said yes to like every project that came up. And but it was never predefined to like end up here. I think it was just a natural curiosity I had, and understanding consumer behavior, and I
Yeah.
loved even the go to market process of bringing, products and services to market. And so I think that was just part of, the natural journey.
Mhm.
I'm happy to share how I ended up at
Yeah.
Ring,
Yeah.
but I think I feel lucky to have worked for such incredible, brands like
Mhm.
Dyson and Sonos, which really helped to shape, that, idea of customer obsession, and how do
Yeah.
you sort of drive that experience, and
Yeah.
how are you relentless about your customer and experience, and really delivering for
Yeah.
them.
Well, actually, on the Ring piece, I guess my question around Ring was why Ring? Like, why did you think? Like, it's actually been 2015, I saw, right? A decade
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. This
What
fall will
was
be a
it?
decade,
Yeah. Like, what was it about
which is
Ring? Because
wild.
it was up and coming at that time. It was
Really
a
early on.
startup, right?
Yeah, I was working at Sonos at the time, and there was a smart home concept called Open House that they were
Yeah.
building, and it was showcasing all of these different devices sort of working together in this ideal smart home.
Yeah.
And I was working on this like Sonos integration with the music player, and there was a Ring video doorbell at the front of this house. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's so interesting. Like I lived in a house in LA that didn't have a working doorbell.
Yeah.
And as a true millennial, I
Yeah.
don't want to answer the door. Um, and thought, "Oh, I could use that at my house," and I remember asking the associate there about it, and he explained it, and I just thought, like, "That just doesn't seem right, like, that doesn't seem like that's how it would work," and I remember flying home, looking up Ring, understanding the product, and felt really moved, like, how wow, like, this
Yeah.
is this incredible thing that could disrupt, how
Yeah.
people interact with their
But
home. It was just
that's the key,
wild to
right?
me.
Could
Yeah,
disrupt, right? You
yeah,
were like I always think back to that like, immigrant mentality, like, for your parents, like, I had the same when I was moving from job to job, right? It's like you're in a stable job, you're in a very linear, stable job with the career
yeah.
trajectory and stuff, and then suddenly you're like, "Oh, I'm leaving to go to a startup." What? That
Yeah,
is a very brave
it
decision,
seemed
right?
it seemed wild, that I would do that, and do it in a space that was, like, reinventing
Yeah.
doorbells, which is, like, no one had really thought about. But I was at such a, crossroads in my career, at Sonos, which I'd learned so much and loved working in music, but was really at this point where I needed a change to happen, and it was just the right timing, and I think they're just things that I
Mhm.
really believe you have to go after what you want, and I just had this feeling, and it was, in some ways, a little bit irrational, but, like, I felt like if I didn't work at Ring, I would regret it, and
Yeah.
so I sent I'd never done this before, but,
Mhm.
like, I felt so strongly about working there, that I sent a cold email, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Hey, here's my story. I've worked with these
Yeah.
brands. I discovered Ring. It's amazing." I bought one at Home Depot, and I got to meet Jamie Siminoff, like, a couple
Yeah.
weeks later, and he hired me on the spot, and I think
Amazing.
that was
Yeah.
not what I was expecting, but I think it was just that feeling that, like, I have to go and work at this company. Like, I
Yeah.
felt I loved the mission, I loved what they were doing, and I needed to, like, be part of it.
Yeah. Oh, clearly it's paid off. So that's brilliant.
I'm so proud of everything we
Oh, it's
do
amazing. And
every day
we're
for our
very loyal
neighbors.
Ring customers, so
Thank
we
you.
love it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think not a day doesn't go by that I don't hear from
Yeah.
our neighbors, which is what we call our customers,
Yeah.
about the things they've found at their home,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
wait, it's changed their life, or I hear the iconic chimes, like when
Yeah.
I'm at the grocery store and it's like, wow, we're everywhere. But
You're literally everywhere. Yeah.
it's humbling and just amazing
Yeah.
to been part of
You were
this like
part of that story
story
from the beginning
from the
almost,
beginning.
right?
Yeah,
Which is
really early
amazing.
stage. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, you've mentioned Jamie, and one of the questions I had was around, your mentors or your role models, not just not just now, but early on in your career as well. So, were there any like key mentors that you'd say stood out as you went through this really crazy journey? Like you kind of been all over the place. Are there any ones that you would be able to talk to?
I mean, I think there are a couple folks that
Yeah,
I'm happy to talk about. I mean, I think Jamie's one. I think for me, like he like took this chance on me, right? Like,
yeah,
and I think it's just been incredible to be on this ride with him and really have such an impact on that. And I've learned, you know, uh, how to just think so far into the future and
yeah,
be willing and relentless about things. And so I think he's been an incredible, mentor for me to work with, to
yeah,
work alongside with
yeah,
for many years. And he's now back at Amazon. So I think that's really exciting to sort of get back to
mm-hmm,
our roots.
mm-hmm,
And then really I have to say my parents, my parents are this incredible example of two people who were incredibly hardworking, that had grit, that,
mm-hmm.
like, you know, were okay with things not going as planned, and you just had a contingency plan and you just went after it, and I think that's something I think about every day.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of, you know, conversation now about resilience and how important that is. And I don't want to like I have to underscore that I think it's
Mm-hmm.
just really important in driving I think success for people is this ability to be
Mm-hmm.
resilient and bounce back
Yeah,
and be okay with things that don't go as planned, but
yeah,
always just figuring out what's next. And I
yeah,
learned so much of that from my parents
yeah.
and like looking back now I realize that like in the moment it's like, "Oh, why are they
Ruining
like
my
this?"
life.
Like,
Yeah.
it's okay, it's, like, not that serious,
Yeah.
but to them it was. It was, like, so critical, and I think about the things I go through now and even with my own kids and just,
Yeah.
like, the experience that they're gonna have is just so different that, like, I worry a lot about, like, "Okay, so how do I build this resiliency and grit in my
Don't take
kids?"
away that privilege, right? I mean, my son's only 2, but we always, me and my husband were like, he's just he's just got everything. He's
Yeah,
got everything. As in,
yeah,
we did not have that growing up.
yeah,
But how do you do that with kids? Well, no, that's amazing. And I feel like that generation as well, they just go getters. They just
yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
Like, there
I
was
think
no
what's
stuff.
so refreshing, and my daughter is almost 5, my son is 2,
Yeah.
and I just think that she's even so much bolder and
Mm,
braver than I ever were. I think I was just
yeah.
sort of, like, a little bit more reluctant to do things and
Yeah.
unsure, and she has so much
Yeah.
confidence, and I love that
Yeah.
about her. Everyone jokes that she takes after me.
I was
Um
just gonna say, well, she's obviously got a good role model.
She often talks about being, wanting to be a scientist and a businesswoman, so that's
Okay,
amazing
okay.
to hear that.
Why not?
Um, but I think that they just have so much more confidence, and there's just it's really just incredible, but I do think it's always top of mind for me of just, like, how do I make sure
Yeah.
for my husband and I, how do we ensure that we
Yeah.
instill those, so those values that are really important
Yeah.
around hard work and being
Yeah.
flexible and
Yeah.
being curious about things, and so, that's a big part of,
Yeah.
the things we
The
talk about.
continuous journey, right, with kids.
Totally, totally, totally.
So I guess, like, carrying on this kind of career journey piece. So obviously you've had an incredible career, Dyson, Sonos, bit of journalism. Are there any like big lessons learned that come to mind during your time in these industries? And they are very different industries. I guess the baseline is the same, but the industries and kind of the people and the environment and the network.
Mhm.
Are there any lessons that kind of come out?
I think there's this idea, especially as I start out in the J school, of just like you've spent so much time. Like there's this sort of idea of like opportunity cost
Hmm.
that I think people sometimes get hung up on. Of
Yeah,
this idea of like, well, I've already spent all this time here
yeah,
doing this, and so like you
I love
almost
that. Yeah,
sort of push yourself into like going down a path
yeah,
because like you need to like I need this to pay off, right? This idea of like, well, I've wasted all this time, which is not
hmm,
wasted time, right?
yeah,
Like I think that's the thing that I'd say is like that was just part of your experience, and now you want to pivot and do something else and to
hmm,
be okay with that. um but I think the thing I talk about is just like this idea of nonlinear growth, that like
hmm,
that you're just really going through this like collection of different experiences that shape who you are, and that there are things you can take from every experience and
hmm,
apply it, that at
yeah,
the sort of like first principles of it, like it is about like to go to journalism school was about how do I be curious and ask questions and be a
hmm,
critical thinker, and that's so applicable in so many other areas. And so I think you
hmm,
can take these experiences you have across, your lifetime and apply it to what you're doing, and not think that it
hmm,
just has to be so myopic or really
yeah,
prescriptive about, hey, that means I'm on set path.
yeah,
And so it's really about how do you embrace that not lawn that nonlinear
yeah,
growth, right? And think about, the pivots that you have and how that can be really a good thing, and
yeah,
embrace that, and it makes you a better leader and a better, you know, business person, or
hmm,
better X, like. And so I
hmm,
think you just have to think about just having that flexibility and not
hmm.
think that you've wasted time.
Yeah, I love that because I think a lot of people they don't. Well, maybe stereotyping, but I feel for myself as well. Like making a lateral move, I'm like, is that the right time? And it's so true. It's like you feel like you're owed almost, but actually, I think the best careers or the best kind of opportunities come from just the unknown. And
Mhm.
when you talk about flexibility, I mean, being in the role you're in now, in a very, very forward-facing role like Ring and Blink, how do you navigate uncertainty and risk? Because as high as the reward, the risk is also quite high, right? And it is the goalpost keeps moving. I mean, with the last 10 years, I've seen kind of the transition in like AI and tech and all of that stuff. How do you navigate that like, with these big decisions and
Yeah, I think, I think that Amazon has actually some interesting, I think, really applicable frameworks that
yeah,
actually help in driving that. And I think one of that is through the sort of one-way versus two-way door decisions. And I
yeah,
think it sounds, very corporate of me to say that, but I
yeah,
actually think it's a really powerful sort of framework for how to think about decisions and how critical they are.
hmm,
Um, I think there are a lot of things, that you have to navigate that are ambiguous as a leader,
hmm,
that are uncomfortable. And so I always think of this notion, beyond the one-way versus two-way door decisions, but it's really taking the information that you have. And if you have like 51% sort of 51% of the information, like make the
yeah,
decision. Like you have enough there. I think in hindsight is where you have 100%. And
yeah,
so you have to take the decisions, or take the information that you know, and make the best possible decision in
yeah,
that moment, and make a decision.
yeah,
I think folks often will not make it, will sort of default to like holding off. And like, I always want to remind folks that not making a decision is a decision.
yeah, yeah,
And so you've just got to continue to, like move things forward and
hmm,
put yourself in a position to succeed, but really just, make decisions and move things forward.
yeah.
It sounds easier than it is in the
It's like when
moment.
you're in the moment, you have to, right? You have to do something,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you talk about, I've heard in your previous interviews where one of your favorite leadership principles at Amazon is "I'll write a lot" because it gives us permission to also make mistakes and that, they're right most of the time,
Yeah, yeah, it's not
which I
right.
love
It's
as
not
well,
like
actually. It
all
was a
right
good way
all
for
the
me to look at
time,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
That's
is
a
about
very good way to look at that leadership principle. I'm going to use that now.
yeah, it's not. It's a lot. So it
Yeah.
does allow this ability to be wrong. I read a lot of stuff from Adam Grant,
Yeah.
who's an organizational
Yeah.
psychologist, and he has this leadership book that I love that's all about, think again. And so, like, what are the
Yeah.
decisions that are really rooted in the history of like that are worth revisiting? That I think sometimes we get really hung up on this idea of like, well, this has already been decided that, we miss the opportunity to revisit and rethink certain
Yeah.
things. And so I think that's a big part of also
Yeah.
not staying so focused on, hey, what's already predetermined, but also taking a step back and thinking like, okay, is there a
Yeah.
better way to do this?
Yeah. Absolutely. Then I guess moving forward, one of the questions I love asking the guests, and everyone's faced this in some format or the other, just around imposter syndrome, right? Like throughout your career, I think especially now, have you ever experienced it? And do you still experience it? And if so, how do you overcome it?
Yeah. I all the time, like I will say like, listen, I don't, like I'll feel like things don't seem real or like, oh, I just got lucky. And
Yeah.
like these things happen. Like those are like some of the voices that sometimes are at the back of, sort of back of your head about that. So it's totally something that like I battle with and many people do.
Yeah.
And I think it's always, taking a step back and thinking about, well, there were times where like I felt like I was facing something that I couldn't get through and I got through it. And so just reminding myself that there are those moments where like I felt like certain things were impossible and I wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
navigate. I wouldn't be able to figure it out, but I did.
Yeah.
And so reminding myself of those moments where like you do,
Yeah. Are you
you
able to give an
you find a
example
way.
of that? Personal or professional? It doesn't have to be either. It can be either.
That's a good question. I think you know, I definitely have been in situations in previous roles where I definitely let a lot of folks, like, shape how I felt about myself. Like, I gave them too much power
Mhm.
over making me doubt myself or maybe thinking like, "Yeah, maybe I'm not very good at this, or maybe I'm not really well suited for this role." And I think the takeaway from that, like, looking back now, like, many years later, is just like I shouldn't have given them so
Mhm.
much power over me, that I
Mhm.
shouldn't have let them determined, like these things for me, or determined how I felt about myself. And so I think that, was something that I take with me now, just like, hey, like there are things that I can control my controllables,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to allow someone to shape how I feel about myself and have that I need to have incredible conviction for what I'm doing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. How is that? So I guess now being in that kind of frame of mind, how has that evolved your leadership style to say when you're working like maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago to where you are now?
I think it's really, I think, as a leader for me with my team, like, I think there's a certain amount of vulnerability that I'm comfortable sort of bringing, that, like, hey, I don't know the answer to this, or I'm not an expert in this. And so I'm going to think about how I build out my team to round out experiences, or if there are
Mhm.
things that, like, I'm not sure of, that I will defer to someone else and say, like,
Mhm.
hey, I'd love for you to weigh in on this, and being okay and showing that. I think that there
Mhm.
are times as a leader that you think like, "Oh, I've gotta have all the answers." And
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's okay to say like, "You know what? I don't know, but why don't we try X?
Yeah.
Or why don't we consult X person?" And so I think that that's shaped a lot of, my experience as a leader, and thinking about how do you show that
Mhm.
vulnerability? How do you show that relatability, that we're also humans and what we're
Yeah.
doing, and be real about those things, and that people find incredible power in that. And it's like, okay, that's someone I
Mhm.
felt like I can talk to, and it's not just someone that's going to, you know, sort of have that sort of like wall up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so really it's about, I think, that vulnerability that's been a big part
Yeah.
of just like, and also I'm always willing to do anything that I ask anyone else to do, that
Yeah.
I'm the first to be like, yeah, I'll help
And
you
that
guys
kind
do
of
that.
goes full circle in your relatable leadership piece, right?
Yeah.
Like you think about, how do you want to show up as a leader? How you would
Yeah.
want someone to show up as well. Has there been like, are there any moments that come to mind where you've had a like where there's been a challenge in your leadership moments, whether at Ring or before that, that kind of spring to mind? And like, what did you learn from that one of maybe one of most challenging times as a leader?
Um, I think for me, one of the pivotal moments was just 5 years ago. Like I was, a high performing leader, but I was also having, my daughter. Like I was pregnant and I was going into I was going into we were going into
Oh my
COVID. And
God, yeah.
so, yeah, I was, 7 months pregnant. We were all going into like a work from home, and there was incredible amount of uncertainty there. I also was a high performer and like was scared of this idea of like, I'm going to like leave in this time where
Mhm.
there's so much uncertainty. I also have known nothing else but, like, sort of, like, working at this sort of intense,
Mhm.
this sort of intense speed,
And
and
that's always
so
been your normal, right?
that was my normal, and,
Yeah.
like, all of these things were sort of converging and happening, and there was, like, an incredible amount of change, and looking back at it now, like, I think that becoming pregnant and becoming a mom or made me a better leader because it really forced things on me
Yeah.
to think about how do I delegate and how do I have like the right, you know, operating principles in place with the team of like how do they make decisions in
Yeah.
a time where I'm not going to be there. That was, and then also we're all sort of doing it in a time that we're all working from home and
Mhm.
figuring out these like new tools, but also like having incredible uncertainty in terms of the world and
Yeah.
what does it all mean. And so I think about like that time a lot and just think about okay, what kind of leader did I need to be in that moment
Mhm.
for the team that maybe was different and new for me,
Mhm.
but was really powerful. And so I think that was part of like, I think this
Oh my God,
change.
having a child at that time as well, and oh my God.
Oh my gosh, I had such expectations about I would have like this village and all this
Yeah.
support and like that, this time would be so different. And it was incredible. It was an incredible time, but like was so different
Oh my
from
God.
how I envisioned it. And that's part of that, like
Yeah.
being flexible. Like,
Yeah.
listen, things don't always go the way that you expect
Yeah.
and to be okay with it. And
Yeah.
so I think that was just a powerful lesson in that.
Wow. This actually goes very well into the next section, and it's more about when you talk about kids and stuff, and obviously you're in a very senior role now. How do you find that balance? And I maybe balance is the wrong word. There's no such thing as balance. How do you find that juggle between like your personal life and being a mom and a
Yeah.
wife and a daughter, and your actual job, which
Yeah.
is very busy and very intense?
No, it's a great question. And Um, I think about this idea of like work life control, and like I'm not really always, I'm not as focused on this idea of balance. Although I do think it's important to like, think about, the elements of like what are the musts, like if I think about like in any given week, like what are the things that I'm most needed for,
Hmm.
and that can apply to work and my personal life, and what are the things I'm just like unwilling to miss out on, and just really being like ruthless about it. I'm also, like, incredibly fortunate to have a really supportive husband. My husband's name is Jamie as well,
Yeah.
which makes my life fun. But he's an incredible partner for
Mm.
me and is so supportive and does so much to support our family and really sort of help me in this, like, with the things that I need and sort of, as we think about, like, that juggle and balance. But I think it's always about being really ruthless about your time and prioritization and what are the things you're not willing to miss out on and whether that's like you
Hmm.
know a school concert or I've really got to do this meeting or I've got to go on this trip and do these things, and so really just thinking about that, and then ensuring that I have time to do the things that fill my
Yeah.
bucket as well, and then I'm just really open with the team about where I'm going to be as a signal as a leader of like it's okay to leave, you know Friday afternoon to take your kids to swim, or it's okay to like take these days off to like do that, trip with friends,
Hmm.
and so just like sending those signals, I think are really important too.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, those are good, those are like your non-negotiables, right? So
Yeah.
how, we move on to like, how do you stay grounded? Because I feel like when you're in such a high stake role, because once you're home, you're just mom, right? You're
Hmm.
nothing like, whereas once you're at work, you're a chief commercial officer and you're really busy and really powerful. How do you stay grounded in like those
I
two
would
worlds
say
collide, right?
having children ground
Well,
you
yeah.
because they do not care. Their needs come
Yeah.
first. I think that my family and my kids do help me really stay really grounded in
Yeah.
sort of like what they, like what needs to happen and really thinking about like that prioritization.
Yeah.
Obviously, I try to be as present as I can when I'm with them, but I'm also like on my phone and I'm like I'm the person that stays on the phone like by her head.
Yeah.
But I think it is really like that they do so much to sort of keep me grounded. And
Yeah.
then there are things that I do to also take care of myself that,
Yeah.
like, I think are a big part of that. But I would say kids are the ultimate, like,
Yeah.
reality check.
Yeah. I completely agree now. Absolutely. They really, really ground you. I guess as we head towards the close, Mimi, I've loved talking to you. What advice would you give to your younger self
Oh,
just starting out? Think back to Mimi in Kansas, thinking about what she wants to do, lots of pressure from the parents, don't want to do this, don't want to do that, want to do journalism. What advice would you give to yourself?
I would tell her to not worry as much and
Yeah.
that it's going to be okay. I think growing up, I had a ton of anxiety about my future, probably because it didn't sort of map to what my parents thought it was going to
Hmm.
be. And
Hmm.
it was really like unknown. Like it was, um, I didn't have this experience of seeing, folks in different careers. It was like, okay, it was like my dad and his engineering friends. And my mom worked for the school district. And so like
Yeah.
it was like somewhat narrow
Yeah.
in terms of like the experience I saw. And so like I didn't know anyone that had a career like mine, like
Yeah.
growing up. And so I had this, I had so much anxiety thinking about my future and would it work out and where would I end up. And so I think I would, tell her not to worry as much.
Hmm.
I said it earlier that we put so much pressure on kids to like declare a major and
Yeah.
stick with it. And it feels so definitive, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm going to do X. And it sort of like
Yeah.
shapes your entire identity. And I think I would encourage her to be open to possibility and
Mhm.
not worry about where you're going to end up and don't worry about comparing yourself to others and be curious and
Oh,
ask
that's
questions. And
wonderful.
so, yeah, I would
Yeah.
I would tell her all those things.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And just going back to like your leadership and leadership at your level, is there one misconception that people, or what's one big misconception you think people have at looking at leaders at your level, or that you hear a lot, or like the weirdest
Because
questions?
oh my gosh, no, it's not. It's like the thing, I have this tool that I use with like new members, new team members who join that's called a user manual. And really it's like
Yeah.
this incredible tool that like I share about myself, I have them share about them that is about sort of like their values, how do
Hmm.
they like to operate. It goes down to even like how do they like to
Yeah.
communicate. And there's one question there of like what's the biggest
Ah.
misconception about you? And I think for me is like I think folks who know me know that I have an incredible bias for action,
Hmm.
and that I am so uncomfortable with indecision,
Yeah.
and so I'm always like ready to move,
I feel that.
decide, and I reach these conclusions quickly, and so I think that the misconception is folks think that I don't want to be challenged or I don't want to hear new perspectives, but that actually couldn't be further from the truth. It's like if you feel differently, I always encourage folks to speak up and tell me, like, are we doing something
Hmm.
that you disagree with? Like, I want to hear that, even if I've decided, like, oh, I think we should go and do X. Like, I actually am open to like changing my mind and revisiting decisions.
Oh, amazing. What?
For my team that's
Yeah.
listening,
Yeah.
they know that's true.
Yeah. User manuals, I think we do that in our team as well. And it's brilliant to see that side of someone that you wouldn't really see unless you're talking to them one to one, which is lovely. So, what do you hope your legacy to be as a leader? When you think, it's very, yeah,
I I
philosophical
don't
question.
really I don't think about legacy so much because I think that's just so I never wanna feel like it's so like I'm so self-important,
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
think, like,
Fair enough.
I
Yeah.
I worry I worry about that a lot, like, that's not really what my ethos is, like, I
Yeah.
don't have, like, a inclination for that, but I think it really is I think I wanna be known for someone that helped people, right?
Mm.
Like, across different things, whether it was through work or did I help them with some advice or guidance, and not that I think I have like the best
Mm.
advice, but like is was there perspective that I gave a person that helped them, and that's how I measure really success like in a day, and probably across my life is did I help someone make a decision, did I help them become
Mm.
better, did I help them in some way, and so I think that's I talked about a lot about like that cosmic balance sheet and
Yeah.
how do I bring people up with me because I feel so fortunate for the opportunities
Yeah.
I've had. And so I think that's, if there was a legacy, it would be about just like how much did I help
Yeah. And
people?
how do you pay it forward?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mimi, to end, I'm going to do a quick fire round with you. I've just started this with my
Oh
guest,
my
and I
goodness.
love it.
Oh
It's
my
very
goodness.
it's fun questions. But yeah, I'm going to do a quick fire round with you to find a little bit more about yourself.
Oh boy.
Right.
Oh boy. Okay.
I think I know the answer to the first one, but okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Yeah.
Almond milk latte to be
Yeah.
specific. Yes.
One shot or two shots?
One. I'm
Yeah.
naturally caffeinated, so I only need
Ah.
one shot for the whole day.
Favorite way to start your day?
Ooh, I like morning pages. I
Okay.
feel like
Yeah.
it's such a great practice to like write out and like it's just like a whole brain dump and just gives me such clarity. I don't do it as
Yeah.
often as I should, but I
Is that
love
like
it.
journalism? Journaling? Yeah.
Yeah, but like I just find like scraps of paper. My husband will say like, "Oh, I found these like
Uh,
envelopes you just wrote on." I was like, "Oh, those are just my morning pages." So it's just really
oh.
informal. So I'm just like scribbling on like scratch paper
Yeah.
and it's really just like dump all the things that are in my head.
Oh, that's interesting. Book that changed your perspective? A one book. I'm sure multiple have, but a book that comes to mind straight away.
I'm gonna actually mention two. One, I will always say Think Again by Adam Grant, which I
Mm.
think was great
I
great
need
for
to read that
business.
now.
And
Yeah.
then I think sort of a book that I read for fun was Clara and the Sun, and I think that changed so much
Mm.
about a perspective on life, and it's an incredible story.
Oh, amazing. I'll add those to my read list. Morning person or night owl?
Morning person now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
former night owl,
Yeah,
recovering night
me too.
owl.
Yeah. I should do that recovering night owl. Most used app,
Oh.
except Ring and Blink,
I
obviously.
can't say the Ring app,
No,
right? I think
no.
that's not fair to say that. Most used app. Oh, that's just such a good. Spotify.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love listening to music. It's just a big part
I
of
would
just
say play
like,
calendar,
yeah.
given that you've got so many things to manage. Favorite way to de-stress?
Oh, ugh, I love going to the spa. Like, actually,
Yeah.
really a good distress for me is like reading or catching up with girlfriends.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, me too. Dream vacation spot.
Oh, I love Italy. It's my favorite
Yeah,
place. I also love Hawaii, but I'd say
yeah,
Italy.
yeah. And the last one, productivity hack you swear by. Morning
Saying
pages was one,
saying
but
no,
anything else? Ah, very
being
good.
comfortable saying
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
It's hard
yeah.
because I always want to say yes to everything, but I think actually the thing that
It comes to your
helps with the
ruthless
prioritization is
prioritization.
actually saying no to things that are even if as much as I love them.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. That's the end. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so
Amy.
much.
I've
This
had
was
such
so
such
fun.
a lovely time speaking to you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Mimi as much as I did. If you found something in this episode that resonated with you, made you think, or inspired you, I'd love it if you could take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It helps more people discover the show and lets us keep sharing these honest, thoughtful stories from the world of work and the lives behind the titles. Thank you again for being here. See you on the next episode.